Hello and welcome to the Public Good. This is Deja James with Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, which unites over 340 community organizations working to build a better Buffalo. We are delighted to join you every Tuesday morning at 11:30 a.m. on Power 96.5 FM and Mix 1080 a.m. You can watch full video of every show on our YouTube page or listen to the podcast on any podcast platform you have. You can get more information on the show at PPG Buffalo on Facebook or on Instagram. We'd love to see your comments. If we also have an opportunity for you to share your personal thoughts on the show, please email info@ppgbuffalo.org to let us know your ideas for change for the community. We'd love to hear about community organizations you think should be highlighted or any other initiatives in the community that you think deserve spotlight. Once again, email us at info@ppgbuffalo.org. Today, we're having a little bit of a PPG show today. We're joined by Andrea Ó Súilleabháin, who is my executive director here at Partnership for the Public Good. And we're here to talk specifically about a conference that everyone here has been working very hard on in partnership with Cornell. If the folks don't know, we share offices with the Cornell ILR School. But Andrea is here to talk a little bit about the conference and why we're hosting this, and especially in a place like Buffalo. So I will let Andrea take over introducing the conference, what it's about, the title. You guys have put so much work into
Thank you
this.
so much, Deja.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, so next week at the Birchfield Penny Arts Center, starting on Thursday, June 20th, and going through 2 days through the Saturday, June 22nd, we're hosting a conference called Uniting on the High Road, Building Economic Justice at the Local Level. And the high road is high road principles, taking the high road to an economy that works for everyone, where jobs have living wages, they can sustain families, where workers have a stronger say in the decisions in their workplace, where we all have a stronger say in where our public money, our taxpayer dollars goes, how our cities are creating their budgets. So really zooming in on economic justice, worker rights and power, and having a stronger democracy at this conference. And we would certainly say, the opposite of uniting, taking the high road, is that we are stuck in low road economic principles. So, right now in Buffalo and nationally, we are in an economic reality. I don't need to tell this to many listeners of this show, where people are working full time, but they cannot afford their basic necessities. And that is a constant theme in the work of our many partners. Folks can't afford their rent. They might be working full time, but can't afford their rent and all their utilities and the rising cost of food. And we can go on and on.
Yeah.
And yet, right here in our own community, when we have large amounts of public dollars to invest, we're giving that money to giant mega corporations and not making sure that it benefits the many, the we, the people of our community, right? So, of course, a big example from Buffalo is that years ago, Governor Cuomo designated the Buffalo Billion, the Buffalo Billion. And I think about 800 million of that Buffalo Billion went to the Tesla plant.
Wow.
And that Tesla plant in Buffalo repeatedly misses its targets for the jobs that it was supposed to create. And then over the last year is union busting and being very negative about its workers' efforts to create a union. So again, what kind of economic development are we paying for? What benefit has that brought to Buffalo? That's
Yeah.
going to be all part of the conversation.
And that's such a shame, especially with Tesla, because now that there's a little bit of a dip in electric cars, they're thinking about laying off people, actually. And Buffalo is one of those plants in one of those secondary cities that they're going to target first. So it's like everyone's really scared about
There
that.
have been layoffs this year, and the Buffalo plant is for solar roof panels, solar roof tiles. That it's had many ups and downs. It started as Panasonic, it was sold to Tesla. So again, it's like when you invest in these mega corporations,
Yeah.
you lose local control, and
Yeah.
it's really out of our hands what happens.
Yeah.
You are also in the world of giant capital, or what's called private equity firms, hedge funds, giant capital. And I was just reading an Associated Press article from last week saying on average in the big S&P 500 companies in the United States last year, CEOs made 200 times what their median workers pay was. 200 times. So that was
Jesus.
about 16 million on average for the CEOs, and then like 30 to 50,000 in wages for the workers. Another study zoomed in on what's called the low wage 100 out of those top 500 companies. And
Yeah.
that's like retail, food service, where
Yeah.
they're making big progress, but they're paying the lowest wages, big profits, paying the lowest wages.
Yeah.
And in that set of 100, the CEO worker pay ratio was 600 times what the
Whoa.
worker
Whoa.
is getting paid. And many of those workers are still making less than $15 an hour.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about how there's all these companies moving here. There's supposed to be opportunity. They say there's a tech boom in Buffalo, but the jobs that are for people that actually live here are still low wage jobs, and there are really huge barriers to entry, or rather glass ceilings that people can't get through to get to those higher paying jobs, even in these supposedly new opportunities or industries that are moving in. And one person that I saw speak last week, who we're going to have as a speaker at the conference, Dr. Henry Taylor from UB, he was mentioning the ratio of folks here with one, either a high school education or higher education, who were able to attain jobs and what opportunities even there were. And even for high school diploma holders, they were unable to, even with the low wage jobs, be able to have one job and afford their expenses. They all had to have 2 and 3 jobs added together to be able, and more doing gig work to be able to afford living here, which I thought really was interesting. And the other thing that he was saying was the racial disparity between, even in those low 100 lower wage industries that are having opportunity, that you can work at here, they're disproportionately hiring even those without a high school education that are white rather than black, Latino, or brown or other races. And so people are stuck in kind of this gig work, multi job kind of economy, and aren't able to have any kind of platform to move at all, which I think is really interesting. I'm sure he'll talk about that more on some of the panel that he's going to be on. But I want to circle back because you mentioned unions, and part of Cornell ILR and even work PPG has done in the past has been about unions. The Starbucks union, like, I think that's one of the most popular, most recent union things that have happened in Buffalo. What role are kind of unions and talks about unions going to play in this conference, and what can people learn about unions
Yeah,
in
so
Buffalo?
I think it's so tied to what you were just discussing, Deja. In our wage sector in Buffalo, in the last couple of decades, we've seen the continued loss of manufacturing jobs and then a huge expansion of low wage work, service sector jobs, food service, restaurant jobs. And as you mentioned with Starbucks, those are starting to organize, which is really important. When those organize into union jobs, they can start to access a livable wage, benefits, and again, that stronger worker voice, workplace democracy in decision making. And so our partner here, Cornell Industrial Labor Relations School, has deep ties with organized labor. We are featuring a number of speakers at the High Road Conference that come from a few decades of union organizing in their background and now have joined advocacy transformational organizations. So we're really going to be looking at what are the ties between community organizing and labor organizing. How can labor and community come together to fight for living wages, fight for healthy communities? We have a really interesting organization coming called Bargaining for the Common Good, and they explicitly come together with community and union partners when a large union is doing a contract negotiation. So maybe a teachers union in a community has their next contract negotiation coming up. And of course, they're going to fight for better wages, better benefits for teachers, but they also sit with parents and community groups and surrounding block clubs from those schools and
Yeah.
say, what are the parent and community needs that we can fight for in this contract as well? So their advocacy campaigns director, Bianca Cunningham, is coming to talk. Theo Moore, an amazing New York State advocate that used to work with at the New York
Yeah.
Immigration Coalition, is now executive director at Align, which is another labor community alliance in New York State that has been running raise the wage campaigns for the last couple of years. They do green jobs, climate, environmental, and wage work, and they're going to be coming to speak about that as well.
Yeah, we should have them talk to the, I don't know if you had heard about the Tops warehouse employees that are,
Yes, that's
yeah,
right. On strike right now.
they're
And
right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We should, I don't know, we should connect with them on
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
Buffalo has had really exciting labor movement activity, as you said, not only new unions organizing, like at Starbucks and a Tesla union that's working to form, but also some nationally significant strikes like the Mercy Hospital workers.
Yeah.
Maybe that's almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
But really showing the power of labor in our own community.
Yeah.
And another person who is in our opening collective keynote that you mentioned, alongside Dr. Taylor of UB and Franchelle Parker of Open Buffalo as our local speakers. We're also really featuring, to kick that off, a woman called Lauren Jacobs, who's executive director at Power Switch Action. And that is a national network of 21 grassroots organizations that was called Partnership for Working Families until they rebranded and reframed a couple years ago. And as Partnership for Working Families, we worked with them in the past. Their focus was really good jobs, good wages. When we give tax breaks and public money to companies,
Yeah.
we should see the return on that. They have reflected and said those were all good wins and really important campaigns. And if we want to really transform society and build a truly just economy and an equitable US, we've got to go bigger than that. And so they reframed and have come up with a really powerful long-term agenda across 4 big areas of work that really align with a lot of PPG and partners work here in Buffalo: building authentic democracy, shaping a people's economy, reining in corporate power, and growing civic organizations. And so they're going to come and reflect with us on those 4 big areas of work. And then another theme, they also talk a lot about co-governance.
Yeah.
And so if we want true, vibrant, working democracy at the city level in the United States, it's got to be a lot more than voting every few years, right? We think that people of all backgrounds should have a deep say in the decisions that affect our lives every day. And so looking at things like leadership development so that community members can join public boards, can start to run for office, looking at things, as we have discussed here before, of people-powered budgets. Everyday people are so excluded from budget making processes at the city level. We see that here with our Buffalo city budget every year. So how can we have participatory budgeting, have people really be able to direct where some of our city budgets go? And then also, another big one is privatizing public services, which we also see that here in Buffalo, where we have a very long contract with a French multinational corporation called Veolia to manage our Buffalo water. We have Buffalo Water as a city department, but we also have this contract with Veolia that does billing, customer relations. So again, we're starting to outsource, privatize our public services, and that means we lose control of that. We can't reinvest it back in the community, hire more people locally, set the terms of their jobs. And so focusing on issues like that too.
Absolutely. And you're bringing all these wonderful national speakers, but also highlighting local together. you're also having field trips, opportunities to kind of highlight Buffalo even further to both this national and kind of local audience. What are some of those trips you're going to be taking out in the community, and why did you, select those specific locations to highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. So the conference starts Thursday, and folks can find the whole agenda on our website, ppgbuffalo.org. And we should be saying repeatedly, this is free and open to the public, so
Yes.
folks can come to the whole conference. There's amazing food, amazing arts performances. The first evening after this really engaging panel of national and local speakers, we'll have Ujima Company come and do a theater performance of Free Fred Brown, which is a climate justice, utility justice piece of theater that they wrote with a whole coalition of activists several years ago. And then we'll start again the next day on Friday, June 21st, for really the big full conference day, where we look at these issues of public subsidies, labor and community together. How do we get to a more just economy? And then, as you said, the afternoon around 4 o'clock divides into field trips. And if folks come onto our website and register, they can choose between a few different field trips. One is digging deep into ecological justice. So on this field trip, folks will visit Massachusetts Avenue Project, an urban farm that does a lot of youth employment, jobs training. They have a community kitchen. They have a mobile fresh market. So folks will visit there and tour the nearby Five Lobes farms as well. And then they will have dinner in Massachusetts Avenue's project, beautiful space, from Extra Extra Pizza, which is one of Buffalo's newer worker cooperatives and a delicious pizza restaurant. So we've got urban farming, youth employment, and cooperative economics through pizza,
Yeah.
all in the mix of that one. There's another field trip, which has filled up already because it's so popular, this one, where Dr. Henry Taylor, that we've mentioned, is going to lead folks on a tour of an East Side neighborhood where they are considering having their neighborhood demonstration transformation project that they've been presenting in recent weeks from how we change the Black East Side. There's another field trip that folks can pick where they will tour the Broadway Fillmore neighborhood in Buffalo and look at reinvestment. What community reinvestment is driven by the neighborhood, is locally controlled, is doing it right? What projects are, again, leaving out neighborhood input? And then they're going to gather at Eugene V. Debs Hall, which is this fascinating space in the Broadway Fillmore neighborhood that is dedicated to the history of worker and labor movements in Buffalo.
Yeah.
It's named after Eugene V. Debs, who I think was a 5-time Socialist Party presidential candidate in the US. You know, this is a century ago, but really a very cool modern space focused on labor history, labor organizing, and they will have wonderful Indian Mediterranean dinner there as well from a local restaurant. So
Yeah.
those are some of the choices.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I think it's a great window into the different parts of the community and different parts of Buffalo that are developing in different stages, right? Because MAP's kind of in that West Side area that kind of started the redevelopment of Buffalo. I think, Dr. Taylor is really going to take people on like that disadvantaged, kind of forgotten area. And then Broadway Fillmore supposedly now has had a lot of development lately.
And Broadway Fillmore is the concentration of one of the big issues that we have worked on with many, many partners, Grassroots Gardens, Push Buffalo, many others, about publicly owned vacant land.
Yeah.
And so I think right at Eugene Debs Hall, they look out at a couple vacant lots that I think they're hoping to turn into a green space for the community. But a major one there in Broadway Fillmore is just still the very high number of vacant lots that are very hard for nonprofits, garden groups, environmental groups, affordable housing developers to access. And so that's definitely a big part of the conversation there.
Yeah, no, it's just an amazing practical application of like, okay, we're going to have all these conference sessions, but let's go out there and look at why we're talking about this and what's happening. I guess I want to ask the question of who do you feel the audience for this conference really is? Because there's a lot of different kind of sectors you're talking about, a lot of different issue areas. But I don't want people to listen to it and say, oh, this sounds like it's an academic thing, or this sounds like it's a politician thing, or this sounds like it's a community organizer only thing,
Right.
when it's really all those things, right? So
I think you're
how do you
right. It's
think,
for everyone.
yeah,
And one thing I love about, one of the big national partners we're featuring, Power Switch Action, that I mentioned, is they have put out there really the most straightforward, clear language about what this all is, right? So they say most of us want pretty similar things: a safe home, meaningful work, a livable planet, and time to enjoy with family and friends. And really, that's what a people's economy means, right? We want a place where we can afford a safe and healthy home. We can enjoy our work. We feel like we have a say in our work. We feel like we're getting paid according to the value that we're creating. We want a healthy community. We
yeah,
won't want to see huge pollution from corporate polluters.
yep,
And we want balance. We want to be valued as workers so that we do have time for family and friends. We want policies like parental leave. We want
yep,
childcare. So all of those things are in the mix here. So really, this is for everyone that wants to stand up in our local community here in Buffalo and say, what we have right now is not working for us,
yeah,
right? We hear every day people feel shut out of local government. Forget about federal government. We know how removed and disconnected people feel from that. But even here at the city level, we don't have a strong enough voice in city and county government. We certainly don't have an economy that's working for everyone and letting us live manageable, healthy lives. So, anybody that wants to stand up and say, we can do those things differently. We can do public safety and policing differently. We'll talk about that too. We are so welcoming them to come to this conference. We have art and music, poetry, art making throughout. So, really,
yeah,
it's a celebration too. I mean, we
yep,
tend to really talk about the problems and the challenges, but when
yeah,
I have been having prep calls with some of these panelists, they've also said so much about this work is living into the optimism and holding on to the hope that another world is possible, right? Like every day when we hear these stories in the media that tell us this is where we're stuck,
right.
like we have to keep doing the work to say, no, we can live a different way. We can structure our work, our economy, our market a whole different way than we are now.
And you're kind of ending the conference on that note, right? With that spark kind of envisioning event that you're planning on
Mm,
doing. I want you to be able to kind of uplift the people a little bit.
that's
We're not
right.
trying
That's
to
right.
just talk about the problems. We are trying to talk about proposed solutions as well, obviously, during some of these plenaries. But there really is this really cool envisioning event. You're going to have poet laureate Jillian Hainsworth there, to really uplift people and kind of envision this better collective future. How does that part kind of going to work? And I really want people to come out to that part on Saturday because it really is going to be an uplifting community moment, I feel.
That's right. That's wonderful. And so on Saturday, having talked about some pretty big issues and concepts and how can we change the economy from the big picture, first we're going to zoom back into the local level and
Yeah,
feature three local organizations that are membership based. So PPG, we're a big network of partners, and each year our partners take a vote to decide what should we work on. So
yeah,
as we talk about strengthening democracy, we have a democratic process in our own organization. And unions and member organizations are a great example of that too. So we are going to have Black Love Resists and the Rest, Buffalo Immigrant Leadership Team, Clean Air Coalition, with staff and members of those organizations to come talk to us. How are they winning campaigns? How are they using democracy in their own organizations to advance this big democratic future? Also, then, as you said, we're going into this Spark session. And so this is going to be Jillian Hainsworth opening this up for us. First of all, just sharing what will be an amazing poetry performance of her own
absolutely.
work, which is so deeply community rooted. I always think of her as like the people's poet, right? She captures the hearts, the concerns, the celebrations of people. And then we're going to hear from six or seven folks about what is possible in arts education, what is possible for youth employment, what is possible in these different areas where we say, again, we can do something differently. But those are 5-minute talks, as you said, Spark. So 5-minute talks. We'll have this cool rapid session of here's an awesome idea. Maybe you can help make it a reality, and go through that in multiple different areas.
That's so fun. And I love that you're ending on that note, because it really is like, okay, we've heard the problems, we've heard potential solutions. Now let's go do it. What do we want to build, right? I think having a shared vision is so, so important. I think a lot of the times we come in, we know what the problems are, we want to learn more about them, but we never get a chance to say, okay, where do we go from here, right? And so doing that, and also doing that in an arts and culture way, I love so much how you're all integrating arts and culture into this, because it matters. And that's really the outlet that many people use for community action, has been for a very long time, but sometimes it's a little bit forgotten, especially in more, academic or professional type spaces. So I think just the community orientedness of this is just so evident to me. And so I think this is just such an exciting thing that people can be a part of. I want to plug again how people can sign up if they're interested, if this has sparked their interest at all. Where are they going? How can they be involved? How can they kind of come and
Yes.
attend?
Very good. So go to ppgbuffalo.org, and the big picture right on our homepage is a link to this conference. Again, it's Uniting on the High Road from June 20th at 4 p.m. With a really wonderful celebratory opening evening, a full day conference on Friday, June 21st, that ends with the neighborhood field trips that we talked about, and then just the morning of Saturday, June 22nd. You can RSVP for free, register for free by this Friday, June 14th. And when you sign up, you can tell us, I'm coming to the whole thing. I'm coming to these 2 half days. You can pick. So if you can't come to the whole 3 days, we still want you to come to parts of it, and just join us for whatever you can. As we said, really powerful conversations with national and local speakers, amazing food, amazing art, music, poetry throughout.
Yeah, and everyone, please share this too. I mean, we really want this opportunity to be taken advantage of by the community. They worked very, very hard, the organizers, to make sure that we're bringing national resources, but we're trying to uplift on the local level specifically. So I don't want anyone to feel like they're shut out of this, that they can't share the opportunity. It's so, so important. Hopefully, everyone's workplaces are kind of understand the investment of why this is important as well.
That's
Yeah.
right. And I should give a big thanks to co-sponsors, Clean Air Coalition, Open Buffalo, the UB Center for Urban Studies, UB School of Social Work, and a law firm, Hayes Dolce, are all co-sponsors, with many more partners giving their time to speak, to take part as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure just as even with the local speakers, there's going to be somebody or seen before or have been interested in hearing. I know I've seen Dr. Taylor speak multiple. He's like my favorite person, so I'm going to bring him up multiple times. But he's just such just magnanimous speaker, and just really inspirational. And he has some really important data and projects that he's been working on. So I hope everyone has the opportunity to come out. Thank you so much, Andrea, for coming and highlighting the high road. I
Thank you.
hope everyone takes the chance to go on the high road with us. And that is the end of our show. This is The Public Good, Tuesday mornings, 11:30 a.m. on Power 96.5. Thank you so much.